Story number 1. Shadows beneath the ice. I still wake up in the dead of night, heart racing and drenched in sweat, haunted by the memories of that chilling expedition beneath the ice in Barrow, Alaska. It was December 2017, a time when the relentless cold of the Arctic seemed to seep into every fiber of my being. Barrow, one of the most remote and unforgiving towns in Alaska, held secrets beneath its frozen exterior, secrets that a group of us, driven by curiosity and duty, were about to uncover. Our team comprised 5 seasoned individuals. Myself, Tom Harris, a geologist with a passion for uncovering the Earth's hidden mysteries. Lisa Morgan, a military engineer with extensive experience in underground facilities. Dr. Emily Carter, a physicist specializing in experimental technologies. Mark Davis, our equipment specialist, and Sarah Thompson, the team leader with a reputation for her unwavering determination. We had been summoned to investigate a long-abandoned cold tunnel beneath Barrow, rumored to house remnants of classified military experiments from the 1950s. The tunnel, buried deep beneath layers of ice and rock, was a relic of a bygone era when the military sought to harness the Arctic's isolation for developing cutting-edge technologies. Over the decades, the tunnel had fallen into disrepair, its purpose obscured by time and the harsh Alaskan environment. Recent reports of equipment malfunctions and unexplained phenomena in the area had prompted the base commanders to dispatch us, hoping to salvage any usable technology and uncover the truth behind the tunnel's mysterious past. We arrived in Barrow on a frigid December morning, the town barely bustling despite the holiday season. The sun, low on the horizon, cast long shadows across the snow-covered landscape, and the biting wind howled through the narrow streets. After a brief briefing, we were transported to the entrance of the tunnel, a narrow crevice in the ice-covered ground that led into the darkness below. Equipped with flashlights, thermal gear, and an array of scientific instruments, we began our descent. The air grew colder with each step, the darkness pressing in around us like a suffocating blanket. The tunnel was narrow and claustrophobic, the walls damp and slick with moisture. As we ventured deeper, the sounds of the outside world faded away, replaced by the eerie silence of the underground. About an hour into our exploration, we reached a large chamber that had clearly been used for some form of experimentation. The walls were lined with old, rusted equipment and faded markings that hinted at the advanced technologies once housed here. Dr. Carter began setting up her instruments, eager to analyze any remaining data that could shed light on the tunnel's history. It was then that we started to hear it, a faint, rhythmic creaking that seemed to emanate from the very walls. At first, we dismissed it as the natural settling of the old structure, but the sounds grew louder and more distinct, resembling footsteps echoing through the chamber. Lisa, ever the pragmatist, suggested we investigate, assuming it might be a structural issue or perhaps wildlife that had somehow made its way into the tunnel. As we moved towards the source of the noise, the temperature in the chamber dropped sharply, our breaths visible in the freezing air. The flashlight beams danced across the walls, revealing nothing but shadows and the remnants of forgotten experiments. Suddenly, the sounds stopped as abruptly as they had begun, leaving us in a heavy, oppressive silence. "Did you guys feel that?" Mark whispered, his voice trembling slightly. Before anyone could respond, a cold gust of wind swept through the chamber, extinguishing our flashlights and plunging us into darkness. Panic set in as we fumbled to relight them, the beams struggling to penetrate the thick shadows. It was then that we noticed something peculiar. The water in the underground stream had risen rapidly, flooding the chamber with icy water that surged around our feet. Emily began to record the phenomenon, her scientific curiosity battling with the fear that gnawed at her. As we tried to navigate the flooded chamber, the water level continued to rise, forcing us to retreat towards the entrance. It was during this desperate retreat that I saw it, a massive shadowy figure standing at the far end of the tunnel, its form indistinct and shifting, blending seamlessly with the darkness. "Everyone, back!" I shouted, trying to keep my voice steady despite the terror clawing at my throat. We turned to flee, but the tunnel seemed to stretch endlessly, the exit no longer in sight. The shadow moved with a deliberate grace, his presence oppressive and malevolent, as if it were the very embodiment of the tunnel's dark history. Lisa, using her military training, took command, directing us to regroup and find another way out. We stumbled through the darkened corridors, the water now ankle-deep, making each step a struggle. The shadow followed us relentlessly, its whispers growing louder, filling our minds with fragmented memories and emotions that weren't our own. "Stop! What do you want from us?" Sarah screamed, her voice cracking with fear as the shadow loomed over her, its hollow eyes staring into her soul. The chamber around us seemed to warp and twist, the walls closing in as the shadow pressed closer. Just as all hope seemed lost, Emily managed to activate her backup flashlight, the beam cutting through the darkness and revealing the shadow's true form, a distorted, tormented visage that mirrored the pain and suffering of those who had perished in the tunnel's depths. "We need to remember," the shadow whispered, its voice a haunting melody that resonated deep within us. "Honor our memories." With those final words, the shadow began to dissipate, the oppressive presence lifting as the tunnel returned to its silent state. The water receded, leaving the chamber eerily still, exhausted and shaken. We made our way back to the entrance, the first light of dawn breaking through the ice-covered ground and casting a hopeful glow over the frozen landscape. We emerged from the tunnel, gasping for breath and trembling from the night's horrors. The experience had left an indelible mark on us, a haunting reminder of the thin veil that separates our world from the restless spirits of the past. The tunnel remained sealed, the secrets buried beneath layers of ice and time, but the echoes of that night lingered, a ghostly reminder of the shadows that dwell beneath the surface. Years have passed since that terrifying New Year's Eve, but the memory remains vivid, a constant shadow that follows me wherever I go. I often find myself drawn back to the stories of haunted places and the whispers of the past, the echoes of our experience a testament to the enduring power of sorrow and the supernatural. Sometimes, when the night is particularly quiet and the wind carries the faintest hint of sorrowful whispers, I swear I can hear the distant echoes of our chants and the soft footsteps of those who once roamed the tunnels beneath Barrow. If you ever find yourself venturing into the forgotten corners of the world or exploring the depths of abandoned places, heed my warning. Respect the stories whispered among the shadows. Honor the lives that were lost, and beware the restless spirits that linger in the darkness. For in the heart of those haunted places, the echoes never truly fade, and the shadows watch, ever vigilant, ready to claim those who dare to uncover their haunting secrets. Story number 2. Shadows of Kodiak. I still wake up in the dead of night, heart pounding and drenched in sweat, haunted by the memories of that ill-fated New Year's Eve on Kodiak Island. It was December 31st, 2018, a night meant for celebration and new beginnings. But for my friends and me, it became a descent into darkness that blurred the lines between reality and the supernatural, leaving us with fears that linger to this day. Kodiak Island, with its rugged landscapes and storied past, had always held a certain allure for us. Known for its pivotal role during World War II, the island was dotted with abandoned military bunkers and remnants of a bygone era. Among these relics stood the infamous Hollow Point Bunker, a structure shrouded in mystery and whispered legends about weapons of mass destruction that were never meant to see the light of day. The tales of restless spirits and unexplained phenomena kept most people at bay, but our curiosity was insatiable. Our group of 5, Jake, Emily, Mike, Sarah, and me, had always been thrill-seekers, drawn to places where the veil between the living and the dead seemed thin. Armed with flashlights, cameras, and a sense of adventure, we decided to spend New Year's Eve exploring Hollow Point, ignoring the local warnings and the uneasy glances from the few residents we encountered. We set out under the cover of darkness, the cold Alaskan air biting at our skin. The journey to the bunker was treacherous, the snow-covered terrain making each step a challenge. As we approached the entrance, the massive steel doors loomed before us, their surface scarred by time and weather. With a mix of excitement and apprehension, we pushed them open, the creak echoing ominously through the silent night. Inside, the air was thick with the scent of rust and decay, the flickering beams of our flashlights casting long, eerie shadows on the concrete walls. We descended into the bowels of the bunker, the narrow corridors winding deeper into the earth. The further we went, the more oppressive the atmosphere became, the weight of history pressing down on us. It wasn't long before we began to hear it, the faint, rhythmic tapping that seemed to come from all around us. At first, we dismissed it as the building settling, but the sounds grew louder, more deliberate, as if someone or something was trying to communicate. Emily, ever the skeptic, tried to rationalize the noises. Probably just water dripping from the pipes, she suggested, though her voice lacked conviction. But as we turned a corner, the tapping transformed into soft footsteps, echoing our own pace with unnerving precision. My heart raced as I glanced over my shoulder. But the corridor behind us was empty, the shadows swallowing any sign of movement. Determined to uncover the source, we pressed on, the corridors growing narrower and the air colder. The flashlight beams danced across old military equipment and faded maps, remnants of the bunker's secretive past. It was Mike who first noticed the strange symbols etched into the walls, cryptic designs that seemed to pulse with an otherworldly energy. "What do you think these mean?" he asked, tracing the symbols with his fingers. Before anyone could answer, a chilling breeze swept through the corridor, extinguishing our flashlights and plunging us into darkness. Panic set in as we fumbled to relight them, the shadows around us seeming to grow thicker, more tangible. In the flickering light, we saw it a dark, indistinct figure standing at the end of the hall, his presence oppressive and foreboding. My breath caught in my throat as the figure began to move towards us, each step deliberate and heavy. "Who are you?" I demanded, trying to keep my voice steady despite the fear gripping me. The figure remained silent, its hollow eyes fixed on us with an intensity that sent shivers down my spine. Suddenly, the temperature plummeted, our breaths visible in the frigid air as the figure reached out a skeletal hand towards us. Emily screamed, and we all turned to flee, the corridor seemingly stretching on endlessly as we ran, the sound of our footsteps echoing like a relentless drumbeat. We burst into a larger chamber, the main control room of the bunker, its walls lined with old monitors and consoles covered in dust. Desperate to escape, we darted towards the exit, but the doors slammed shut of their own accord, trapping us inside. The oppressive presence of the figure loomed over us, the whispers of lost souls filling the room with their sorrowful lament. "It's not letting us go," Jake whispered, his voice barely audible over the cacophony of whispers and tapping. Determined to find a way out, we began to search the room for any signs of an escape route. It was Sarah who discovered a hidden panel behind one of the consoles, revealing a narrow passage that led deeper into the heart of the bunker. With no other choice, we squeezed through the opening, the whispers growing louder and more desperate as we ventured into the unknown. The passage led us to a vast underground chamber, the air thick with an unearthly energy. In the center stood an ancient altar, the symbols from the walls etched into its surface glowing with a spectral light. As we approached, the whispers coalesced into a haunting chant, the voices of the past urging us to remember and honor their suffering. "It's some kind of ritual," Mike realized, his eyes fixed on the altar. "Maybe we need to complete it to appease whatever is here." With trembling hands, we followed the instructions etched into the altar, chanting the words in unison. The room began to shimmer with a soft, ethereal light, the oppressive darkness lifting as the spirits of the bunker's past found solace in our acknowledgement. The dark figure that had haunted us stood before us once more, its form now less menacing and more mournful. Thank you, it whispered, its voice filled with a sorrow that resonated deep within us. Remember us. With those final words, the spirits began to dissipate, the light fading as peace settled over the chamber. The doors to the main control room swung open, allowing us to escape the bunker's dark embrace. As we emerged into the crisp Alaskan dawn, the first light of the new year breaking over the horizon, a profound sense of relief washed over us. In the days that followed, we shared our story with the locals, the legend of Hollow Point Bunker now etched into Kodiak Island's tapestry of haunted tales. The experience had left an indelible mark on us, a reminder of the thin veil that separates our world from the restless spirits of the past. Sometimes, when the wind howls through the rugged terrain and the night is particularly quiet, I swear I can hear the faint echoes of our chant and the sorrowful whispers of those we encountered. A ghostly reminder that some secrets are better left undisturbed. If you ever find yourself exploring the forgotten corners of Kodiak Island or delving into the depths of abandoned places, heed my warning. Respect the stories whispered among the shadows. Honor the lives that were lost. And beware the restless spirits that linger in the darkness. For in the heart of those haunted places, the echoes never truly fade, and the shadows watch, ever vigilant, ready to claim those who dare to uncover their haunting secrets. Story number 3. Whispers of Prudhoe. I still wake up in the dead of night, heart pounding and drenched in sweat, haunted by the memories of that eerie evening beneath Prudhoe Bay. It was December 1983, the height of the Cold War, and I was just another engineer assigned to the sprawling oil and gas facility nestled in the Alaskan wilderness. Little did I know, my routine inspection of the underground bunker would blur the lines between reality and the supernatural, leaving me with fears that linger to this day. Prudhoe Bay was a remote outpost, its isolation only matched by the harshness of the environment. The facility was built with the utmost secrecy, housing not only the machinery that fueled our nation's energy needs but also a network of underground bunkers designed to withstand any conceivable threat. These bunkers were the stuff of whispered rumors among the locals, tales of unexplained phenomena and restless spirits bound to the cold, unyielding earth. I had been working at Prudhoe for just over a year, my life a monotonous cycle of maintenance checks and equipment repairs. The underground bunkers were off-limits to most, but as the lead engineer, it was my responsibility to ensure their integrity. On that fateful night, a severe storm had knocked out power across the facility, plunging us into darkness, with emergency generators only partially operational. My team and I were left to manually inspect the bunkers for any signs of damage or intrusion. Equipped with flashlights and communication radios, we descended into the bowels of the facility. The air grew colder with each step, the oppressive silence broken only by the distant hum of machinery struggling to stay alive. The tunnels were narrow and claustrophobic, the walls slick with moisture and the remnants of past expeditions long forgotten. As we reached the main inspection chamber, the flickering light from my flashlight cast long, dancing shadows across the concrete walls. I began my routine check, meticulously examining each section for any signs of compromise. It was then that I first felt it, a subtle shift in the air, a presence lurking just beyond the edge of my vision. I paused, my breath visible in the frigid air, trying to rationalize the sensation. Perhaps it was just the stress of the storm, the isolation playing tricks on my mind. But then, I heard it, the faint sound of footsteps echoing through the tunnel behind me. My heart skipped a beat as I spun around, the flashlight beam darting through the darkness. There was nothing there, no sign of another person. My mind raced, attempting to attribute the noise to a loose panel or a rogue piece of machinery. Shaking off the unease, I continued my inspection. The footsteps grew louder, more deliberate, as if someone or something was following me. Quickened my pace, the sound matching my every step. My team glanced at me with concern, sensing my growing anxiety. "Tom, everything okay?" one of them asked, her voice tinged with worry. I nodded, though my insides churned with fear. Yeah, just a bit on edge, I guess. But the feeling of being watched persisted, the presence growing more tangible with each passing moment. I could swear I felt eyes boring into my back, unseen yet intensely present. The air seemed to thicken, the cold intensifying as I reached the far end of the chamber. My flashlight flickered, threatening to extinguish, and I cursed under my breath, struggling to maintain control over the device. Suddenly, the light died, plunging me into complete darkness. Panic surged through me as I fumbled to turn the flashlight back on. But the switch was unresponsive. The darkness was suffocating, pressing in on all sides, and the sound of breathing filled the silence, heavy, labored breaths that didn't belong to any of my team members. "Tom, what's happening?" Emily, the newest member of our team, whispered, her voice barely audible. Before I could respond, a cold gust of wind swept through the chamber, sending a chill down my spine. I felt an invisible force tugging at my clothing, pulling me towards the center of the room. Desperate to free myself, I struggled against the unseen grip, my mind racing for an explanation. "Let me go," I shouted, my voice echoing off the walls. The breathing grew louder, more intense, as if a multitude of unseen entities were surrounding me. Shadows seemed to dance at the periphery of my vision, shifting and swirling with malevolent intent. I could feel a presence pressing down on me, the weight of countless souls bearing into my very being, summoning every ounce of strength. I forced myself to stand, breaking free from the invisible restraints. The flashlight flickered back to life, revealing the chamber bathed in a dim, ghostly light. Standing before me was a figure, indistinct and wreathed in shadow, its eyes glowing a piercing white that seemed to see right through me. "Why are you here?" the figure whispered, its voice a haunting melody that resonated deep within my soul. I stumbled back, the flashlight shaking in my hand. I was just inspecting the facility. "What do you want?" The figure remained silent, its presence overwhelming and suffocating. Slowly, it began to move towards me, each step deliberate and unyielding. I could feel the air grow colder, the shadows deepening around us as the figure approached. "Leave now," pleaded, my voice trembling with fear. "We don't want any trouble." But the figure didn't relent. Instead, it extended a hand, its fingers elongated and twisted like the branches of a dead tree. "Remember us," it whispered, the words echoing through the chamber like a mournful chant. "Honor our memories." Before I could react, the chamber began to shake violently, the walls cracking and the ground beneath me giving way. I screamed, the sound swallowed by the chaos as I was pulled into the darkness. The last thing I saw being the figure dissolving into the shadows, its message lingering in the cold air. When I awoke, I was back at the entrance of the chamber, the storm outside raging with renewed intensity. My team stood around me, their faces etched with concern and fear. "Tom, are you okay?" Emily asked, her voice shaky. I nodded, though my mind was reeling from the encounter. "Yeah, just need to get out of here." As we made our way back to the surface, the oppressive presence seemed to lift, the shadows receding as if respecting our departure. The storm had intensified, the howling wind and pounding rain masking any remaining sounds of the underground horrors we had faced. Once outside, we hurried to our vehicles, the isolation of Prudhoe Bay now feeling like a cage we couldn't escape. As we drove away, the first light of dawn began to break over the horizon, casting long shadows across the snow-covered landscape. The memory of that night lingered, a ghostly reminder of the thin veil that separates our world from the restless spirits of the past. Years have passed since that terrifying New Year's Eve, but the experience remains vivid, a haunting echo that follows me wherever I go. I often find myself drawn back to the stories of haunted places and the whispers of the past. The echoes of our encounter a testament to the enduring power of sorrow and the supernatural. Sometimes, when the night is particularly quiet and the wind carries the faintest hint of sorrowful whispers, I swear I can feel the lingering presence of those restless spirits, urging me to remember and honor their memories. The shadows of Prudhoe Bay continue to resonate within me, a constant reminder that some places hold secrets better left undisturbed. Their stories preserved in the darkness for those brave enough to uncover their haunting truths. If you ever find yourself venturing into the forgotten corners of the world or exploring the depths of abandoned places, heed my warning. Respect the stories whispered among the shadows. Honor the lives that were lost. And beware the restless spirits that linger in the darkness. For in the heart of those haunted places, the echoes never truly fade, and the shadows watch, ever vigilant, ready to claim those who dare to uncover their haunting secrets. Story number 4. Whispers of the Hidden Hollow. I still wake up in the dead of night, heart pounding and drenched in sweat, haunted by the memories of that harrowing expedition on Mount McKinley. It was the summer of 1952, a time when the allure of untouched wilderness called to adventurers like me. Little did I know, our quest for discovery would lead us into the depths of darkness, both literal and metaphorical, leaving scars that never fully healed. Our group consisted of 5 seasoned mountaineers: myself, Tom Harris, Jack Mitchell, the grizzled leader with a penchant for uncovering forgotten histories, Sarah Donovan, our skilled navigator and the only woman in the group, Bill Thompson, the ever-optimistic climber, and Mike Reynolds, the quiet yet indispensable equipment specialist. We had heard whispers of an ancient bunker hidden deep within the rugged terrain of Mount McKinley, a relic from a bygone era that promised secrets and untold stories. The journey to the bunker began like any other ascent, grueling, exhilarating, and filled with the camaraderie that only shared adversity can forge. The towering peaks of Mount McKinley loomed above us, their snow-capped summits piercing the clear blue sky. As we delved deeper into the wilderness, the landscape grew wilder, the air thinner, and the sense of isolation more pronounced. One afternoon, after days of relentless climbing and navigating treacherous paths, we stumbled upon a narrow crevice partially concealed by overgrown vegetation. Jack, ever the curious historian, insisted we investigate. There are records of a military outpost here from the 1940s, he explained, his eyes gleaming with excitement. If we're lucky, we might uncover something extraordinary. With a mix of skepticism and anticipation, we squeezed through the narrow passage, our flashlights cutting through the encroaching darkness. The air grew colder, the walls damp with moisture, and the silence oppressive. After what felt like an eternity, the crevice opened into a vast underground chamber, a bunker, meticulously carved into the rock, its entrance sealed by heavy metal doors that had long since rusted shut. Jack wasted no time in prying open the doors, the effort itself a testament to the bunker's forgotten history. As the heavy gates creaked open, a musty scent of decay and earth filled the air. Our flashlights illuminated the expansive space, revealing rows of old equipment, faded maps, and strange symbols etched into the walls, symbols that none of us could decipher. Sarah approached one of the walls, tracing the intricate designs with her fingers. These markings, they don't look like anything I've seen before, she murmured, her brow furrowed in concentration. The symbols seemed to pulse with an eerie energy, casting elongated shadows that danced menacingly in the flickering light. As we ventured further into the bunker, the atmosphere grew increasingly oppressive. A palpable sense of unease settled over us, the very air thick with an unseen weight. It was then that we began to hear it, a faint, rhythmic tapping, like fingers drumming on stone, echoing through the corridors. We exchanged nervous glances, the sound amplifying our growing fear. Probably just the wind or something. Bill attempted to reassure us, though his voice lacked conviction. But the tapping persisted, morphing into soft, sorrowful whispers that seemed to emanate from every corner of the bunker. Mike, ever the skeptic, scoffed at the notion of ghosts or spirits. Come on, guys, It's just the old pipes or some ventilation system acting up," he declared, though his voice wavered slightly. Undeterred, we pressed on, driven by a mix of curiosity and the unspoken fear that something was terribly wrong. In the heart of the bunker, we discovered a small, sealed-off room that had clearly been used for storage. The door was adorned with more of the strange symbols, their meaning as elusive as the origins of the bunker itself. As Jack attempted to pry open the door, the temperature plummeted, our breaths visible in the frigid air. The whispers grew louder, their tone shifting from sorrowful to desperate, as if pleading for something or someone. Suddenly, the heavy door swung open on its own, revealing an empty chamber bathed in shadow. The flashlight beams danced across the room, catching fleeting glimpses of movement in the periphery of our vision. "Did you guys see that?" Sarah whispered, her voice barely audible. Before we could respond, a dark silhouette materialized at the far end of the room, its form indistinct and shifting. The temperature dropped even further, the air thick with a suffocating presence. We stood frozen, the figure slowly advancing towards us, its movements deliberate and unnerving. "Who are you?" Jack demanded, trying to assert control over the situation. The figure remained silent, its hollow eyes fixed on us with an intensity that sent chills down our spines. As it drew closer, the whispers coalesced into a haunting melody, the sound of distant laughter and weeping blending into an unsettling harmony. The walls seemed to close in around us, the oppressive darkness pressing down like a physical force. In a surge of adrenaline-fueled fear, Mike lunged towards the figure, attempting to push it back. But his hand met nothing, the entity passing through him as if he were a mere shadow. The room filled with the sound of rattling chains and anguished cries, the air thick with the sorrow of lost souls. "We need to leave. Now!" Bill shouted, his voice cracking with terror. We turned and sprinted back through the corridors, the whispers and tapping chasing us like an invisible predator. The symbols on the walls seemed to shift and change, leading us deeper into the labyrinthine bunker. Panic set in as we realized we were hopelessly lost. The layout of the bunker no longer familiar. The whispers grew louder, more insistent, filling our minds with fragments of memories and emotions that weren't our own. It was as if the bunker itself was alive, feeding off our fear and desperation. Just as we thought all hope was lost, we stumbled upon the entrance, the heavy metal doors now within sight. But as we reached out to push them open, the doors refused to budge, the symbols on their surface glowing with an otherworldly light. The room grew colder, our breaths shallow and rapid as the whispers reached a crescendo. Desperate, we began to chant the symbols aloud, hoping to appease whatever force held us captive. The light from the symbols dimmed, the oppressive atmosphere lifting slightly as the whispers softened to a mere echo. With one final push, the doors swung open, the cold night air a stark contrast to the suffocating darkness we had left behind. We fled the bunker, the heavy metal doors slamming shut behind us with a finality that echoed through the night. The journey back to the surface was a blur of fear and exhaustion, our minds struggling to process the horrors we had witnessed. As we emerged into the crisp Alaskan air, the first light of dawn breaking over the horizon, a sense of relief washed over us, tempered by the lingering fear of what lay beneath the mountain. In the days that followed, we shared our story with the locals, who listened with a mix of skepticism and unease. The bunker was promptly sealed off, the government denying any knowledge of its existence, further fueling the rumors and legends that had kept it hidden for decades. But we knew the truth: we had encountered something beyond our understanding. A lingering sorrow that bound restless spirits to the cold depths of Mount McKinley. Years have passed since that fateful New Year's Eve, but the memory remains vivid, a haunting reminder of the thin veil between our world and the supernatural. I often find myself drawn back to the stories of haunted places and the whispers of the past, the echoes of our experience, a testament to the enduring power of sorrow and the unknown. Sometimes, when the wind is particularly harsh and the night is eerily quiet, I swear I can hear the faint echoes of tapping and the sorrowful whispers of lost souls. A ghostly reminder that some places hold secrets better left undisturbed. The shadows of Mount McKinley continue to resonate within me, urging me to honor the memories of those who can no longer speak for themselves and to respect the boundaries between our world and the supernatural. If you ever find yourself venturing into the forgotten corners of the wilderness or exploring the depths of abandoned places, heed my warning. Respect the stories whispered among the shadows. Honor the lives that were lost. And beware the restless spirits that linger in the darkness. For in the heart of those haunted places, the echoes never truly fade, and the shadows watch, ever vigilant, ready to claim those who dare to uncover their haunting secrets. Story number 5. Shadows beneath Nome. I still wake up in the dead of night, heart racing and drenched in sweat, haunted by the memories of that ill-fated expedition beneath Nome. It was late December 2014, a time when the bitter Alaskan winter wrapped its icy fingers around the rugged landscape. Nome, renowned for its gold rush history, had always been a beacon for miners seeking fortune and adventure. Little did we know, our quest for gold would lead us into a darkness far more sinister than we could have ever imagined. Our team consisted of 5 seasoned miners. Myself, Tom, Jake, the enthusiastic newcomer, Maria, our geologist, Sam, the equipment specialist, and Mike, our quiet, dependable leader. We had heard whispers of an uncharted shaft discovered years ago, rumored to house veins of untouched gold deep within the earth. The prospect of unearthing a forgotten trove was too tempting to ignore. The entrance to the mine was concealed behind a thicket of brambles on the outskirts of Nome. The heavy metal door, rusted and worn by time, seemed to guard secrets long kept from the world above. With flashlights in hand and determination in our hearts, we descended into the bowels of the earth, the air growing colder and the darkness thicker with each step. The initial descent was uneventful, the walls damp and slick with moisture, echoing the distant drip of water. As we ventured deeper, the atmosphere shifted. An oppressive silence enveloped us, broken only by the sound of our footsteps and the occasional clink of our gear. It was Maria who first noticed the strange anomalies, small, unexplained shifts in the rock formations and fleeting shadows that darted just beyond the reach of our flashlights. "Guys, do you see that?" Maria whispered, pointing to a section of the wall where the shadows seemed unnaturally dense. Jake, eager to prove himself, ventured closer. "Probably just a trick of the light," he said, though his voice lacked conviction. But as we continued, the strange phenomena intensified. We began to hear faint, rhythmic tapping, like fingers drumming on stone, and soft whispers that seemed to emanate from the very walls around us. The temperature dropped noticeably, our breaths visible in the frigid air despite the minimal insulation of our gear. It was Mike who suggested we set up camp for the night, to better explore the mine in daylight. We agreed, establishing a temporary base near a small chamber that offered some protection from the biting cold. As we settled in, the tapping grew louder, more insistent, and the whispers became clearer, though still indecipherable. Jake, restless and unnerved, decided to investigate alone. "I need to see what's causing this," he muttered, disappearing into the darkness with only his flashlight to guide him. Minutes turned into hours, and Jake never returned. Concern etched on our faces. We decided to call out to him, our voices echoing through the cavernous tunnels. No response came, only the persistent tapping and the oppressive silence that followed. Panic began to set in when we realized that Jake had vanished without a trace. We scoured the mine, our flashlights cutting through the darkness. But there was no sign of him, no footprints, no disturbance, nothing. It was as if he had been swallowed by the very shadows that haunted the mine. Desperate and terrified, we regrouped in our makeshift camp, the weight of Jake's disappearance pressing down on us. It was then that Mike recounted the stories he had heard from older miners about the mine's dark history. a series of unexplained deaths and disappearances that had occurred over the decades, all attributed to a malevolent presence dwelling within its depths. Determined to uncover the truth, we decided to press deeper into the mine, venturing into areas previously unexplored. The further we went, the more the atmosphere became charged with an unearthly energy. The shadows seemed to move of their own accord, twisting and writhing along the walls, while the whispers grew into mournful cries that echoed through the tunnels. In a particularly narrow passage, we stumbled upon an ancient chamber, its walls adorned with cryptic symbols and the remnants of old mining equipment. The air here was thick with a sense of sorrow and rage, the oppressive weight almost tangible. As we entered, the temperature plummeted, and the sounds around us reached a crescendo: tapping, footsteps, and whispers intertwining into a cacophony of anguish. Suddenly, a black shadow surged from the walls, its form amorphous and shifting, moving with a speed that defied human capability. Mike, ever the protector, stepped forward, trying to confront the entity, but the shadow enveloped him in an instant, his screams echoing through the chamber before silence reclaimed the space. Terrified and recognizing the futility of fighting an unseen force, we fled the chamber, the malevolent presence in relentless pursuit. The mine seemed to twist and turn, the corridors elongating and narrowing, trapping us in a labyrinth of fear. Our flashlights flickered, shadows dancing around us, mocking our attempts to escape. In a final, desperate bid for survival, we stumbled upon the main shaft that led back to the surface. The exit seemed tantalizingly close, yet the mine fought to keep us within its dark embrace. The shadows coalesced into nightmarish forms, their whispers now a unified chant of sorrow and rage, attempting to pull us back into the depths. With sheer determination, we pushed forward, the oppressive darkness threatening to consume us. The cold was unbearable, each breath a struggle against the suffocating air. Just as we thought we could go no further, the first light of dawn broke through the entrance, casting a warm glow that banished the shadows and silenced the whispers. We emerged from the mine, gasping for breath, the early morning light a stark contrast to the darkness we had left behind. The memory of that night etched itself into our minds, a haunting reminder of the thin veil between our world and the supernatural. Jake was never found, and the mine remained closed, its secrets locked away beneath the frozen earth of Nome. Years have passed since that harrowing New Year's Eve, but the fear and sorrow linger. I often find myself drawn back to the stories of Nome's haunted mines, the whispers of the past echoing through my thoughts, urging me to respect the boundaries that hold the shadows at bay. Sometimes, when the wind is just right and the night is particularly quiet, I swear I can hear the faint echoes of tapping and the sorrowful cries of lost souls, a haunting reminder that some places are better left undisturbed. If you ever find yourself venturing into the forgotten corners of Nome or exploring the depths of abandoned mines, heed my warning. Respect the stories whispered among the shadows. Honor the lives that were lost, and beware the restless spirits that linger in the darkness. For in the heart of those haunted places, the echoes never truly fade, and the shadows watch, ever vigilant, ready to claim those who dare to uncover their haunting secrets. Story number 6. Shadows of Barrow. I still wake up in the dead of night, heart pounding and drenched in sweat, haunted by the memories of that fateful evening in Barrow, Alaska. It was December 2016, a time when the biting cold of the Arctic seemed to seep into every crevice of my being. Barrow, one of the most remote and unforgiving towns in Alaska, held secrets beneath its frozen exterior, secrets that I, a lifelong resident, had always been too cautious to explore. But curiosity, that relentless beast, had finally gotten the better of me. The abandoned basement beneath the old wartime bunker had always intrigued me. Built during the height of the Cold War, it served as a clandestine operations center, shrouded in mystery and silence after decades of neglect. Locals rarely spoke of it, and those who did preferred to keep their voices low. as if discussing the basement could somehow summon the shadows within. One icy December evening, driven by a mix of boredom and an insatiable need to uncover the truth, I decided to venture into the basement, armed with nothing but a flashlight, a sturdy pair of gloves, and a camera to document my findings. I approached the bunker. The heavy metal door creaked ominously as I pushed it open, the sound echoing through the silent facility. Descending the narrow, rickety stairs, the air grew colder, the darkness pressing in on me from all sides. Each step felt like a descent into the unknown. The walls damp and covered in mildew. The flashlight's beam flickered, struggling to pierce the thick darkness that seemed almost tangible. My breath came in visible puffs, the chill biting at my lungs. The basement was vast, a sprawling network of rooms and corridors that had long since been forgotten by time. Dust motes danced in the beam of my flashlight, illuminated like tiny specters in the gloom. Old, rusted equipment lay scattered about, remnants of a past era that had left no lasting mark on the present. As I moved deeper into the basement, a sense of unease settled over me. The silence was oppressive, broken only by the distant drip of water and the occasional scuttle of unseen creatures. It was then that I began to hear it, a faint, rhythmic tapping, like fingers drumming on a wooden surface. My heart skipped a beat as I froze, listening intently. Another tap, louder this time, followed by a soft thud. It sounded like footsteps, slow and deliberate, echoing through the cavernous space. I turned my flashlight towards the source, the beam sweeping across the dark corners, but saw nothing. The shadows seemed to shift and dance, playing tricks on my mind. I convinced myself it was just the building settling or some animal scurrying about, but the feeling of being watched refused to leave me. Pushing forward, I reached a large, open room that had once served as a command center. The remnants of old monitors and consoles lay abandoned, their screens dark and lifeless. As I examined the area, the tapping returned, louder and more insistent. This time, it seemed to come from all around me, reverberating off the walls and filling the space with a disorienting cacophony. Panic began to claw at my chest as the sounds grew more distinct. Steps approaching, doors creaking open and shut, whispers that seemed to come from nowhere. My flashlight flickered violently, the beam darting uncontrollably as if struggling to maintain its hold on reality. I felt a cold sweat break out across my forehead, my instincts screaming at me to flee. Determined to maintain some semblance of control, I decided to document the phenomenon. I raised my camera, the lens capturing the swirling shadows and the eerie ambience that now permeated the basement. As I filmed, the whispers grew louder, their words indistinct but filled with a palpable sense of sorrow and anger. Suddenly, a shadowy figure materialized at the far end of the room, a tall, indistinct form that seemed to absorb the light around it. My breath caught in my throat as I stared in disbelief, the figure standing motionless, its presence both mesmerizing and terrifying. I took a hesitant step forward, my hand shaking as I pointed the flashlight and camera in its direction, hoping to capture evidence of the supernatural. But as quickly as it had appeared, the figure vanished, leaving behind only the oppressive silence and the lingering echoes of the whispers. I spun around, my flashlight beam sweeping the room frantically. But there was no sign of the apparition. The tapping had ceased, replaced by an overwhelming sense of emptiness that pressed down on me like a physical force. Shaken to my core, I knew I had to leave. The basement no longer felt like a place of discovery, but a chamber of lingering spirits and unresolved pain. As I turned to retrace my steps, the corridor seemed to stretch on endlessly, the layout shifting and warping as if the very structure of the bunker was alive, intent on keeping me trapped within its dark embrace. Desperate, I called out into the darkness, my voice echoing back at me with a hollow resonance. "Hello? Is anyone there?" No response came, only the oppressive silence and the faint echoes of the basement's dark history. My legs felt like lead as I struggled to make my way back to the stairs, the flashlight slipping from my grasp and clattering to the floor, its beam cutting through the darkness in erratic flashes. As I reached the top of the stairs, the heavy metal door loomed before me, a barrier between the world of the living and the secrets that lay beneath. With one final burst of adrenaline, I pushed it open and stepped outside. The cold night air a stark contrast to the stifling darkness of the basement. I didn't stop running until I was safely back in my car, the engine roaring to life as I sped away from the haunted bunker and the lingering presence that refused to let go. The next morning, determined to understand what I had experienced, I returned to the bunker with a colleague, armed with better equipment and a more rational mindset. But when we entered the basement, it was just as I had left it, silent, dark, and devoid of any signs of the night's terror. The shadows remained, but the oppressive presence was gone, leaving behind only questions and a lingering sense of unease. In the days that followed, I delved into the history of Fort Wainwright and the old wartime bunker, uncovering stories of soldiers who had perished in tragic accidents and whispers of restless spirits bound to the underground chambers. It became clear that midnight, that moment between the old and the new, was a time when the veil between our world and the spirits of the past was thinnest, allowing the echoes of sorrow and anger to permeate the present. Years have passed since that harrowing New Year's Eve, but the memory remains vivid, a constant shadow that follows me wherever I go. I often find myself drawn back to the stories of haunted places and the whispers of the past, the echoes of our experience a testament to the enduring power of sorrow and the supernatural. Sometimes, when the night is particularly quiet and the wind carries the faintest hint of sorrowful whispers, I swear I can hear the distant echoes of footsteps and the soft taps that once haunted me. A ghostly reminder that some places hold secrets better left undisturbed. The shadows of Barrow continue to resonate within me, urging me to honor the memories of those who can no longer speak for themselves and to respect the boundaries between our world and the supernatural. If you ever find yourself exploring the forgotten corridors of an abandoned place or delving into the secrets of the past, heed my warning. Respect the stories whispered among the shadows. Honor the lives that were lost, and beware the restless spirits that linger in the darkness. For in the heart of those haunted places, the echoes never truly fade, and the shadows watch, ever vigilant, ready to claim those who dare to uncover their haunting secrets. Story number 7. Echoes beneath Fort Wainwright. I still wake up in the dead of night, heart racing and drenched in sweat, haunted by the memories of that fateful assignment at Fort Wainwright. It was the night of New Year's Eve, 2015, and I was just another soldier tasked with guarding the base's most secretive underground facility. Little did I know, stepping into those shadowed corridors would blur the lines between reality and the supernatural, leaving me with fears that linger to this day. Fort Wainwright, nestled in the unforgiving expanse of Alaska, was no ordinary military base. Beneath its hardened exterior lay a labyrinth of underground rooms and tunnels, remnants of Cold War paranoia and classified experiments long forgotten by most. The area I was assigned to patrol had been sealed off decades ago, its purpose shrouded in secrecy. Rumors among the ranks spoke of strange occurrences and unexplained phenomena. But as a seasoned veteran, I dismissed them as mere ghost stories meant to entertain during long, lonely nights. The night began like any other, silent, cold, and oppressive, armed with my flashlight and a radio that barely picked up any signal beyond the immediate vicinity. I descended into the bowels of the facility. The air was thick with the scent of damp concrete and rust, each step echoing ominously in the vast, empty halls. My flashlight beam danced across old, decaying equipment and faded military insignias, remnants of a past era that refused to fade away. As midnight approached, the base above was alive with celebrations, fireworks lighting up the sky and the distant sounds of laughter and music filtering down through the walls. I should have been enjoying the festivities from the safety of my quarters, but duty called, and I remained vigilant, ensuring that the secrets below remained undisturbed. It was then that the first sound pierced the silence. A faint tapping, rhythmic and deliberate, coming from deep within the corridor. I paused, listening intently. Another tap, followed by a soft thud, as if footsteps were echoing my own. My heart quickened, the cold dread settling in my bones. "Who's there?" I called out, my voice barely a whisper against the vast emptiness. No response came, only the persistent tapping that seemed to follow me wherever I went. I swung my flashlight around, the beam cutting through the darkness, revealing nothing but shadows and the oppressive silence of the underground. Shaking off the unease, I continued my patrol, the sounds growing louder, more insistent, as if an unseen presence was toying with me. Minutes turned into hours, and the tapping never ceased. It seemed to emanate from every direction, blending with the distant drip of water and the occasional hum of faulty machinery. The temperature dropped further, my breath visible in the frigid air, and an inexplicable feeling of being watched gnawed at my sanity. Every shadow seemed to hide a secret, every corner a potential threat. As I reached the end of the corridor, the tapping intensified, morphing into a chorus of whispers that echoed through the tunnels. I felt a presence, something malevolent and restless, pressing down on me with an invisible weight. The walls seemed to close in, the oppressive atmosphere suffocating my every breath. Panic surged through me as I realized I wasn't alone. Something was here, something that didn't belong. Desperate to escape, I turned to retrace my steps, but the corridor had transformed. The layout was unfamiliar. The walls warped as if the very structure of the facility was shifting to trap me within its dark embrace. The whispers grew louder, their voices filled with sorrow and rage, a haunting lament that resonated deep within my soul. In the distance, I saw a faint light, a doorway that wasn't there before. My heart raced as I sprinted towards it, the sounds of footsteps and whispers chasing me like a relentless storm. As I reached the door, I hesitated, the fear paralyzing me. Taking a deep breath, I pushed it open, only to find myself back at the beginning of the corridor, the endless loop trapping me in a nightmarish cycle. Exhausted and terrified, I collapsed against the cold concrete, the whispers now a cacophony of anguished cries that seemed to pierce through my very being. I knew I had to leave, to abandon this place and its restless spirits. But the corridor stretched on endlessly, the exit forever out of reach. In a final act of desperation, I closed my eyes and focused on the memories of home, my wife, Laura, and our children, Emma and Jake. The thought of their faces gave me the strength to break free from the oppressive force that held me captive. I forced myself to stand, my legs trembling, and began to walk forward, ignoring the whispers and the invisible presence that tried to pull me back. The corridor began to light up, the oppressive darkness lifting as I approached what felt like the end of my nightmare. The door to the underground facility loomed before me, the promise of escape shining like a beacon. With one final push, I burst through the door, the cold night air of Alaska hitting me like a tidal wave, the sounds of the underground fading into the distance. Breathing heavily, I didn't stop until I reached the safety of the base above. The first light of dawn breaking over the horizon and casting long shadows across the snow-covered landscape. The experience left me shaken, the memory of the whispers and the restless presence a constant reminder of the thin veil between our world and the supernatural. In the days that followed, I shared my story with fellow soldiers, but most dismissed it as the result of stress and isolation. Yet, deep down, I knew the truth. We had encountered something beyond our understanding, a lingering sorrow that bound restless spirits to the underground chambers of Fort Wainwright. Years have passed since that harrowing New Year's Eve, but the memory remains vivid, a ghostly echo that follows me wherever I go. I often find myself drawn back to the stories of haunted places and the whispers of the past, the echoes of our experience a testament to the enduring power of sorrow and the supernatural. Sometimes, when the night is particularly quiet and the wind carries a faint whisper, I swear I can hear the distant echoes of footsteps and the soft taps that once haunted me. a ghostly reminder that some secrets are better left buried, their stories preserved in the shadows for those brave enough to uncover their haunting truths. If you ever find yourself exploring the forgotten corridors of a haunted place or delving into the secrets of the past, heed my warning. Respect the stories whispered among the shadows. Honor the lives that were lost. And beware the restless spirits that linger in the darkness. For in the heart of those haunted places, the echoes never truly fade, and the shadows watch, ever vigilant, ready to claim those who dare to uncover their haunting secrets.